it's messy old stuff. Hi, I'm still in Bulgaria. What I really like about it, it's just so bird rich. Everywhere you look there's birds. There's red-backed shrikes, lesser grey shrikes here. If this was a slightly wooded road there'd be nightingales every 50 metres or so. But you can just sit down and watch a meadow like this and you'll be seeing birds. You just do not get that in the UK anymore. It's like going back 100 years in time. And the other thing that's great about it is you have great access to the land. You see a dirt track, you can just drive up it, and there's quiet little lanes like this. There's hardly any traffic on them. It's pretty potholed, but just tremendous access to the land. I'm travelling with one of Emil Enchev's bird photography tours, and you'll find his website in the description underneath this video. And there's one of his hides in the distance. This is one of their semi-permanent hides. It's up for the season. And this is a two-man hide, but there's another identical hide about 30 metres away. We're sitting in a canvas hide just above a small quarry, so there's a sort of rocky face, and a hoopoe's nest is in that rock face somewhere. Can't actually quite see the nest, but the hoopoe's landing on various perches and rocks around, and then there's some bee-eaters as well. One of Europe's more colourful species, and always very popular with photographers, not just because they're pretty, but also because they catch bees and other insects too, butterflies and dragonflies. They're always interesting to watch. And you often get a lot of interaction between them as well. They tend to nest in small colonies. All the pictures are taken with the OM1 camera and the 150 to 400mm lens. Shutter speed is almost irrelevant here. The birds aren't moving. You can get away with 500th of a second, take the picture at 5,000th of a second. You won't see much difference. When it comes to birds in flight, 2,500th is my starting point. Faster if I can. What's more important to me is to have the aperture wide open, so I'm throwing the background out of focus. So the lens is nearly always at f4.5. These days it's very rare for me to close the aperture down at all, unless I'm doing a group of birds. And all of the flight shots are taken with the advantage of Pro Capture, a wonderful feature. Here the male will be feeding the female. They haven't got a nest at this point, but they're obviously interested in a nest right next to the hoopoe's nest. The bee-eaters kept landing on the rocks in the small quarry where there was a dirt face where they could make their burrow, which they would lay their eggs in. But the hoopoe wasn't so keen on sharing, and every time the hoopoe came in to feed its youngsters, it would chase the bee-eaters off. And now we're moving on to another hide, quite a substantial one. This is owned by another Bulgarian photographer called Bogdan, who I've met several times, and it's set up for some rollers. There are two nest boxes for the European roller here, and clearly two pairs, and there was a lot of interaction going on between them, a lot of squabbling. The OM1 Micro Four Third camera that I'm using today only has one minor disadvantage in my mind, and that's the fact it has 2 extra stops of depth of field. So with the lens wide open, I've still got 2 more stops. And here you can see the background is a bit more in focus than I want it to be. But when I'm a bit closer, it's not. It's nice and diffused. So long as the background is 100 meters away, you still can get nice diffused soft backgrounds. A bit of courtship feeding coming up. A morning session with the rollers and then off to find other subjects. Isabeline wheat ear. This is a subject that's a regular in Bulgaria and quite an easy one to photograph from a portable hide. They've got setups for little owl too. But let's get back to where we started. In a floating hide today. Not my first experience of a floating hide. This is slightly different. I'm in chest waders today. I was in a wetsuit last time, and the pool that I'm on is quite small. But it's very early in the morning, the sun's not up yet, but I'm out in the middle of it, just waiting for the sun to come. Whether the microphone will pick this up or not, but there's two kingfishers here. One I can see, but two I can hear. And he's on a branch, and I've managed to walk right up close to him. He wouldn't do this on foot on the bank, but inside a hide like this you can slowly move up to it, and it's taking no notice of me. Birds are always less intimidated by boats than they are cars. Even you can get close to birds in cars than you can on foot, but boats or floating hides like this, generally speaking, you get even closer. This is taken at a 20th of a second before the sun was up, and it's still sharp. Parts of the pool are open water, but you can see the bits where it's a bit on the marshy side. There's a black-winged stilts nest over there, so I won't go any closer. It's a very easy bird to photograph, black-winged stilts. You can often do them from the car window in various places. I did them quite recently in Sardinia, and I've done them many times before. There's a little grebe's nest here. Again, just taking no notice of me, just sitting there. Not very interesting though to photograph, but when they get off the nest, which they do from time to time, they cover the eggs over with the vegetation, and then when they come back they have to remove all that vegetation, pull it to one side. So that's the more interesting picture. So I'm going to sit here for, well, a little while, maybe not too long. When the bird did eventually slip off the nest, I didn't notice. I just suddenly realised it wasn't there anymore. It was on the water. But then, a minute later, it's back on the nest. The black-winged stilts will put an appearance in from time to time. And there are times when you're not in clear water and you've got to push that floating hide through some very unpleasant looking mud. I wanted to get a little closer to these nest building moorhens. The camera is on my normal tripod head attached to the floating hide, but but it's very difficult to keep steady shots. The hide itself is rocking and moving, so it's more difficult than when you're on a proper tripod or working from a beanbag. The base is not really solid enough. The little ring plovers were just doing their displaying. The two birds came together, spreading the tail. Very good. I just need a stool to be able to sit down. Put a stool on the bottom of this water so I can sit, because this is very uncomfortable. But I think I managed to hold the birds in the frame without the camera or the boat, the floating hide moving about too much. Well, I'm surrounded by little ring plovers at the moment, and some of them just far too close to be able to get a picture of them. Even if I zoom back with this 150 to 400mm lens, I'm just far too close. I'm now in very shallow water, so I'm on my knees, which is actually more comfortable because my back is not bent over. I've managed to find a position where I can actually sit down in the water. So I've pushed the hide back against the bank behind me. So I suppose I'm sitting in about 6 inches of water. And it's a real relief to take that strain off your back. Because the floating hide does tend to move around a bit, it's much easier to take stills pictures than video. You don't have to be so steady. This is all part of their ground display, and I've seen it many times before, and I got some decent portraits too. But the other thing that was going on was the flight display, and that's something else I've photographed before. In fact, I have a film on little ring plovers which included their flight display, but here using the Pro Capture, so I don't have to press the button until after the bird is gone, and I still get the picture. I was aiming for around 5 thousandths of a second here because I know the bird's going to be coming at great speed and directly towards me. Thanks for watching.